This is Link to the Cast, your weekly dose of video games and nerd culture ephemera, available everywhere good podcasts are sold. I'm your party host, Dave Ryan, and I don't know if it's just something I've said that I can't string together more than one co-host at a time, but thank God, with Mark continually away on assignment, that is just one birthday rager that has gone on for a couple of weeks, and with Garrett now away on assignment, I have been joined graciously by the returning Mr. Chelsea, Jack Lazell. Jack, how are you?
Yeah, thank you very much. I am back.
First cap for 2023.
Oh, well, I mean, the first cap of the new season of Link to the Cast. Obviously, you know, if McGee is listening to this opening gambit and you've just said this is the first cap of 2023.
That's the postseason, or that's the, what did I describe it on Twitter? It's the community shield of Link to the Cast, is the is the McGee burial.
A lot more
burial,
abusive,
as the case may be.
Normally you sort of warm yourself up in a community shield, like, you know, but that's
it's like a community shield if like someone like Keno was starting in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or he's just got in studs up.
End of season appraisal where you just, no matter what you do. I mean, I do believe he referred to you at one stage as Billy Ray Cyrus, so
he did indeed.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate you like trying to fight my corner, go like he's growing it out to cut it off for charity, and
Mark
him
did.
just completely, he's not having it.
No, Mark did, but then whenever you said
Mark.
Yeah, whenever you've said that to me as well, I'm just like, oh, Mr. Big Shot trying to make us look bad with his growing his hair out for charity. Because that's the only way I can react to that, because there's really nothing else you can say. It's just a really nice gesture.
Oh, well, you say that, but Sean McGee had more to say, I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah, he's a
and look, do you know what? We look at it like in his music, not so much, but like Billy Ray Cyrus, not an ugly man.
No, I mean,
his day. So I'll take it. I've heard worse.
Yeah, look, back in the day, I bet Billy Ray Cyrus was kind of, you know, top of the list as desirable hunky male. And then had
Billy
that
Slay Cyrus
had that weird career resurgence, didn't he? Have you ever known it where you have somebody who's a one-hit wonder? Because I mean, Achy Breaky Heart. I mean, I'm sorry if anyone is like really immersed in the Billy Ray Cyrus back catalogue, by the way. Apologies.
he's about to achy breaky your heart with what he's about to say.
Exactly. Apologies to all the Billy heads or whatever you're going to call yourselves. But, you know, he went away, Dave. He was away
sorry, the fans should absolutely call themselves Silly Billies.
The Silly Billies. The Silly Billy. Silly Billy Bunch. Yeah, exactly. If you can think of a better name for a collective, you know how you have like a sort of parliament of owls? What is the collective descriptor for a group of Billy Ray Cyrus fans?
A silly of Billies.
A silly of Billies, yeah. I found the other day, because I'm, you know, highbrow like this. I do the Times quiz most days, Dave, of course. You know how I'm basically, obviously thinking that I intellectually, but not actually there at all, because I'm actually an idiot. But I found out that the term for the collection of tigers is an ambush of tigers.
Yeah.
Right, I did not know that, and I just thought that was really, really cool. And that is genuinely how I would feel if a group of tigers happened upon me. So, how would you feel if
it would have to be an ambush, because I don't feel like I would willingly surround myself with tigers.
No, exactly. Yeah, unless it was kind of, you know, Tiger King style situation, and they were all unfortunately drugged.
If I was cast as the antagonist in a Far Cry game.
Yeah, exactly. But then you'd have like your hand like on the head of one of the tigers, and they would obey you before.
That's absolute. It's pagan min behavior, is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Before ultimately devouring you in the last act of the game, as you, the final boss, sit there on your throne being eaten by tigers.
It's got to be a good payday being the villain in a Far Cry game, because it's like show up for one mocap scene at the start, one at the end.
I remember you guys said this because I listened back to the show last week, of course, and you were saying like one big scene and then like a couple of bits of interstitial dialogue in the middle.
Like a half day in the booth.
Yeah, pretty much. And very, very appreciative of your suggestion of Giovanni Ribisi to be the villain. Although,
because then, like, it will retroactively make everything you were saying right. You won't have confused two men because both of them are in a Far Cry game.
Can you imagine that someone goes back and listens to me talking about Far Cry 6, and then and assumes I was actually talking about Far Cry 7.
It's like, oh my god, it's like this Jack Laselle guy's got like Jeff Grubb level scoops.
Exactly.
How did he know?
How did I know? But anyway, Billy Ray Cyrus, it's funny how he had like this resurgence with that Lil Nas X song, like what was it, maybe 20-25 years after the original. And just like trying to think of how many examples you have of somebody that's like famous for one thing a million years ago, and then all of a sudden they're kind of brought and thrust back into the collective conscious.
It's making me want to put all my chips down on Lou Bega coming back in 2024.
Oh mate, the Lou Bega resurgence. Or like all of a sudden
Germany's favourite son.
All of a sudden the Buggles come back. The follow-up to Video Killed the Radio Star that we've all been waiting for.
What would be like if you were to draft your ideal one-hit wonder return arc? Who would it be? Would it be the Buggles?
I don't think it would necessarily be that. I'd quite like a sequel to Eiffel 65 Blue.
Oh, well, unfortunately, we do have that in the charts at the moment.
We do?
Have you not heard is it Bebe Rexha has remixed
oh no,
Blue, and it's awful.
Oh no.
Yeah. I believe our good friend Todd in the Shadows has it listed as maybe his number one of the worst songs of last year.
That is, yeah,
because it was like right at the end, like it's still in the charts now, so it was right like December time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately Eiffel 65 have been
I quite like Turning Japanese by the Vapors. I think that's a pretty damn good song. New Radicals I'd like to see come back. I'm just trying to think of more modern ones.
Ooh.
No?
Because I'm thinking of stuff like when I go back and think of like Ultimate One Hit Wonders, I'm like, what would an Aha return arc look like?
I don't feel like Aha were a one hit wonder though.
I mean, if you ask most people, they definitely were.
No, me and my good friend Matthew Kenneth James Biggs have spent an afternoon for some reason driving around to the greatest hits of Aha. Just in his car. I remember at some stage he managed to get his hands on the greatest hits of Aha. But The Sun Always Shines on TV is a massive song, Dave. And Cry Wolf as well.
Was the best of Aha kind of like in Ireland we had the best of Samantha Mumba, where Samantha Mumba was like a huge pop star and like very isolated to the UK and Ireland for about, generously we'll say 18 months, and then like 6 or 7 years later goes to release a greatest hits album that is essentially just that one album she did.
No, I think they've got, like I say, there's a couple of songs on there that are absolute bangers. Do you know The Sun Always Shines on TV?
The name of the song sounds familiar.
If you heard it, you would know it. And then obviously they did The Living Daylights, which is a fucking great Bond theme, right, as well. So there's a good 5 or 6 songs on there, and yes, they're all heavily stacked towards the front of the record, and then towards the end of it you were a bit like, but I don't know why, but me and Biggs just had the our greatest hits, and we were just pumping it, man.
I'm looking at the list of Todd in the Shadows One Hit Wonderland episodes to give me an idea, and imagine an Asher Roth comeback if you want to talk about more modern one hit wonders.
What does he do now? Like, I like Middle Management.
Yeah. I loved college. It's just a really maudlin tune about how much better things used to be.
Do you know what made me feel that way is when I watched Fresh Meat on Channel 4. So it's obviously like a sort of comedy drama about a bunch of university students in this country. But I'd finished uni and I was maybe like 23, 24 when that came out, and I remember watching it just being like, oh man, this is sad watching this now, because I'm just young enough that it's really only just around the corner for me, but also old enough to know that I'll never be kind of that sort of young and like sort of clueless, but in a fun, exciting way again. So yeah, I would love an emo Asher Roth to return with the song about how he loved college.
Are we is society ready, although I assume they're both dead now, for a return of Los Del Rio, the sequel to the Macarena?
I God hope they were like 1,000 years old when that song came out.
Yeah, they were elderly men.
Can someone check in on Lost Del Rio for us?
It was surprising at the time that they had the mobility to do the very simple movements of the Macarena.
Yeah.
That actually made like the whole dance being like arm based.
Yeah.
Probably is because they just had like replaced hips and stuff like that.
One of my favorite gags, and obviously this show is, as we know, sponsored by Fraser, is the in universe Fraser version of the Macarena was the Barracuda.
Yeah.
And it was the only dance that Nas's wife Maris could do because she was so frail. All you needed to do was do like a little underbite and like jut your jaw out, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they come back with a Barracuda maybe.
One of the ones I saw here on this list that I think is like, they're more of a one album wonder than a one hit wonder, but I'd totally be down for an Alien Ant Farm return.
Yeah, I saw Alien Ant Farm play that whole record like back to front, the one that had like Movies and Wish, Smooth Criminal, all of those songs on it, and then they came out and did like the one song. Is it? These days is the big song from the second record, or like the second famous record anyway, and it was such a good gig. Like they were really fucking good. So yeah, I'd be happy for those because it was still all of the guys from the original lineup. It was really
I would
cool.
personally commission them to do like to cover more Michael Jackson songs so we can take those back and enjoy them.
Yeah, just get like the best people, the best pop and rock stars of the age to cover all of the Michael Jackson songs.
Let me tell you, Fall Out Boy doing Beat It wasn't it.
No, it wasn't. Although, can we just have a please massive shout out for my man Donald Faison, who absolutely crushed that video with his dancing. I
thought you were saying we do a shout out to actually the new Fall Out Boy single isn't that bad, and I would concur. It actually sounds more like old them than
they remember
whatever the fuck they've been trying to chase for the last 10 years or so.
They remembered they were a band instead of trying to be like a diet Imagine Dragons, which was pretty much what their career has been for the last 10 years.
Horrendous stuff.
It was. That first Fall Out Boy record, From Under the Cork Tree.
Yeah,
I like that.
I'd even go so far as to say like Infinity on High as well had some good tunes on it.
Yeah, I think I kind of had a weird relationship with them where the big songs that they had on TV, I always kind of had a level of affection for, but I was never into them as much as some of the other bands from that time.
I wouldn't be into them as much as I think they're real an earworm band.
Exactly, yeah.
If their stuff comes on a playlist, I'm like, hell yeah. And when I went to Hella Mega Tour, but that was mainly to see Weezer and also Green Day, who I've seen a bunch.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed myself when Fall Out Boy were there.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of like the mid-carders on that slot because it's like Weezer open and then it's Fall Out Boy and then Green Day.
I put Weezer the thing is, mind you, if you took the first like 2-3 Weezer records away, you probably would put them as the opener, but like I would put Weezer significantly above Fall Out Boy in those stakes. And the first Fall Out Boy record was Take This to Your Grave. That was what I was thinking of. There's the one that has Grand Theft Autumn on, and then Cork Tree is the one that has Sugar We're Going Down on it. So that's my bad for anybody listening that would be disappointed in me for getting those out of order.
While we're on kind of pop culture stuff, let's talk about what we've been watching lately. And I suppose dovetailing on from a show we started talking about last week with Garrett, the first 2 episodes of, you also have been watching The Last of Us.
Yes. Garrett didn't sound particularly enamored with the show, so
I was kind of excited, and we'll get into it. I was kind of excited if he was going to be on the show this week, given the new episode.
Yes.
Because I feel this might have been the turning point for anybody that was a little bit like, oh, I don't know what I'm getting out of this show so far. But go on.
It was very, very good, would you not say, the episode from this week?
I think it was an extraordinary piece of television.
Yeah.
Like I tweeted about it that like, so I've obviously, as I have detailed exhaustively, played both games. So when I saw people saying in the preview articles leading up to the episode, I was like, oh my God, this episode, it's the Bill episode, and it tore me to shreds. And I was like, I know the Bill part of the game. I'll be fine, and not realizing necessarily, and it's something I had read, and as soon as it started to happen, I was like, oh yeah, people had said this was the first episode that was diverting significantly from the game, and oh my god, emotionally speaking, I felt like I'd been hit by a truck.
Yeah, like characterizing that whole relationship between Bill and Frank in the way that they did, just, you know, essentially made their whole kind of backstory and arc just feel significant and rich, and just the whole relationship between the two of them, and then the way it ended. I don't know if we're saying spoilers here.
Let's well, the thing is, if you've played the game, like, you know, some of the broad strokes. Do you know what I mean? Like, not this, obviously the stuff they changed in the middle, but you know about Bill. So let's say minor spoilers for this episode contained within. Check the next timestamp for what we're talking about next.
Yeah. So in the game, Frank is just he's like pre-dead, isn't he? You don't really see him.
He's only ever referred to. You never meet him.
Exactly. So to see that there's this whole fleshed out, beautiful, like, romantic situation between Bill and Frank that ultimately ends up in this almost Romeo and Juliet-esque situation. Like, to me, the whole thing felt like a Shakespearean tragedy being played out on the screen, Dave. And Nick Offerman in particular, I was just so touched by his performance. Not that I should be, I guess, should it be a surprise that Nick Offerman absolutely nailed this role to the degree that he did?
I knew he was going to nail it because I had watched, and I think I talked about it on the show at the time when we were still all locked down. I think I watched Devs on Disney Plus, which is an Alex Garland sci-fi series on Disney Plus that he is anything but Ron Swanson in, and I'm like, oh, that's where I first realized this guy's got really good dramatic chops.
Yeah.
But I also think he's a great he's a great shout for that role because of the, like, there is that sensitivity and vulnerability to him, but also in terms of, like, actual Nick Offerman and his pastimes, like, he is into all, like, he is one or two steps short of a prepper in terms of, like, he has, like, a wood shop and crafts loads of shit. So, like, he is exactly the kind of guy that if a cordyceps situation went down, he's one of the people that I'd be backing to survive.
Yeah. Fair enough, man. It sounds like we should all go hang out with Nick Offerman. By the way, while you were saying that, I looked up Devs, but then I am just finding out that he was in a series about baseball with Abby Jacobson from Broad City as the lead character in it, and I am absolutely, definitely going to watch that. A League of Their Own, it's called.
It's the series adaptation of the film.
I don't know if it is though, because it's set in 1943.
Maybe it's just a reimagining, but I know they did a show based on the film, so maybe that's like, it's, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know for sure. I thought it was interesting. You can't do a baseball thing called A League of Their Own and it not have something to do with the film without being massively sued, surely.
Yeah, I think maybe it was an adaptation or something, but you know, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. How am I just learning about this? I tell you what's going to be in my iWatch next week. It's going to be this show, Dave. Slight divergence, which is basically the entire show so far. So welcome to me and Dave hosting this shit.
Yeah, this is what happens. Just send your complaints to @Lithium Project.
Yeah, exactly. Like, where were you to stop these two clowns rolling off? But yeah, I mean, what can you say about it? It was breathtakingly emotionally impactful how they set everything up, how they built the relationship between these two guys, and then the ending, like, just a tragic, you know, the marriage, and then the suicide. I just honestly, like, even thinking about it now is getting me going. But yeah,
the two things that absolutely rattled my cage after being like so all over the place emotionally watching it, the two things that, like, as I was stewing in my emotions afterwards, that set me off again were going with the flashbacks, realizing that in this version of The Last of Us, Tess and Joel were together for at least 16 years. That hurt a little. It kind of recontextualized her end in episode 2 for me. And then the other thing is the two of them getting married to each other, doing their own ceremony, because of course in this universe the world ended before gay marriage was legal. So
yeah,
that was just like, oh. It just hurt my soul a little bit more. It made it a little bit more beautiful.
Yeah.
The whole thing. But it was so good. And I know there's like, I've seen some takes this week. Like, you're always going to get the people who went the other way on it. And I totally respect that point of view. Like, some people thought it was like a little bit, some members of the LGBT community in particular thought like it was just like a bit too on the nose for them, that they kind of want more nuanced representation. And, you know, I totally like that point is valid for them. But just as like an hour of TV, I thought it was an incredible, beautiful story told so well.
Yeah.
And of like, again, this gives me much more faith in the show going forward, because this is, again, they were flying without the source material for large strokes of this episode, and it turned into the best episode so far.
Yeah.
And it also makes me, in an emotional sense, dread when they do the Left Behind episode with Ellie, which they are doing this season. It's like, that's going to be gutting.
Yeah, so shout out to Craig Mazin, or Mazin, or I'm not entirely sure, but he's the guy who wrote this episode. So like most of the series is co-written with Neil Druckmann, obviously, because, and
he is of most recent fame. He was behind the Chernobyl HBO show.
Yeah, which is, again, incredible. Like, won a fistful of awards, and it's just very, very good. But yeah, he hasn't got like that many TV writing credits. This is only his third TV writing credit, and just incredible. Like, this guy is gonna make a buttload of money in his life, because his understanding of like human relationships and how to convey that emotional impact, and just like a slow release through the episode of the points where it's like you kind of know that it's not going to end well for them, but you buy in. So, because I mean, like, it doesn't end well for a lot of people, like Tess in the previous episode, for instance, but you kind of buy into the feelings, and you kind of almost let yourself forget, like in that marriage bit, you let yourself forget a little bit what's going to happen to these guys, and you just listen to what they're saying. And then goddamn, the only thing I've got to say bad about this show so far, Dave, is that it is a difficult watch every week so far. I mean, the first episode is basically the start of the first game. Kind of talks a little bit about it with Sean and Mark, but then, anything on from there is just like the little bits and pieces they add in. It just makes it all the more heartbreaking. And I think it's going to be a hard watch every week, essentially, this series, but it's worth it so far.
Take us from the horrors of the dwindling human race to the magic of the movies.
Yes, this is the Fabelmans, Dave, which, holy shit, if this isn't the second movie I've seen in the last couple of weeks where the final message of the movie is cinema, yay. Because I also watched Babylon. I don't think I've spoken about that on the show, but I mean,
was it a piece of shit?
It's a very specifically ridiculous piece of shit in a way that makes you kind of think, like, there probably is a good movie in here. If it just
they just didn't find it.
Yeah, no, man. The whole movie. You know how Oasis's third record is just so it's so fueled by cocaine and excess and bloat. And like every time someone is not singing, there's a guitar lick that Noel Gallagher's playing, probably because he was off his tits in the studio and thought it was a good idea. And every song is like 8.5 minutes long when it could have been 4 or 5. This movie is like 3 and a bit hours long, and there is a really nice...
It's what?
Yeah.
Whatever small hope there was of me going to see that in the cinema has just evaporated.
Yeah. And within the
not doing, after fucking Avatar last month, I'm not doing a 3-hour movie for a while.
Within the first 5 minutes of the movie, you see an elephant shit on a man, a woman...
Okay, now I'm back in.
A woman piss on a guy, and...
Okay, back out.
And Margot Robbie in a... what can only be described as Pacino-less heroic level of cocaine in front of her. So yeah,
potentially back in.
Yeah. Margot Robbie, by the way, is so good, right? And she and all of the central performances in Babylon, like her and Brad Pitt, obviously you would expect a higher level of performance from. But I didn't know too much about Diego Calva, who's like, he played Manny in the movie. He kind of starts out as just a like basically a waiter at this excess party, which is happening out, I assume, somewhere on the sort of Mexican-Californian border, and all things guns are blazing and everything going crazy. But he was incredible. So their performances, the three of them, were so good, right? Also, Lee Jun Lee, put Lee Jun Lee in everything. She is wicked. But anyway, I digress. So it's just like, they were so good, but so much of the movie in and around it was absolute bollocks, and it was just kind of over bloated and ridiculous and strange.
Is it one of those where they're trying to go for that Wolf of Wall Street, where everything about the film is done to excess,
pretty much,
to kind of like to play into that theme of excess in the actual plot of the film, but unlike Wolf of Wall Street, it just didn't pan out for them.
Yeah, and it also has 2 performances in here from Flea, who is basically, you know how Flea in Back to the Future is just like McFly, and he's just like over the top and ridiculous. He's the same level of over the top and ridiculous, and he's just essentially playing like a concierge, like the manager of all the concierges. And it is like movie taking you out of level distracting, like how fucking scenery chewing he is, even though he's only in it for like 15-20 minutes.
Am I gonna see him pop up in, have you seen that viral tweet that's going around? Is like, where is it's like a scene in a movie where an actor has just taken very normal dialogue and just fucking gone ham at it. Pretty
much, yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of Matt Berry in the quote tweets for that, like the New York City has popped up a lot.
City, yeah. That might not even be in the top 10 of ridiculous ways that he pronounces a word in that thing. There's a bit where he turns around and he's like, "Shut the fuck up! I'm trying to do a piece to camera." So now every time I see a camera, I'm just like, a camera. Fucking Matt Berry, what a legend. But he's going for that in a comedy show, which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And also, when you hire Matt Berry, that's what you get.
That's what you get, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess maybe that's what Flea shtick is as well. But also, Tobey Maguire is so God, Dave, first of all, right, I'm laughing already. They're trying to convince us that Tobey Maguire is like a mob boss.
Oh my God.
But he's kind of like, it's like Bugsy Malone level shit, where you can tell he's just like a little douchebag. It's like
I feel like when he was like in his 20s, he could have pulled off like the little shitty son of a mob boss who was like made a capo by dad.
Or like, have you seen Succession?
It's on the list of shame.
Oh my God! By the way, when you watch that, it's mind-blowingly good. But Kieran Culkin,
I've started it, but I haven't. Like, I've got like 2 episodes in and then been distracted by other stuff.
Kieran Culkin is like a little deviant son of a like tycoon who says enough smart things for you to recognize he's smart, but does enough horrible, cynical things, and is just basically he's a sex pervert. Dave is what he is.
Okay.
And Tobey Maguire is kind of do that same thing here, except that he is nowhere near got the same level of grasp on it as what Kieran Culkin had in that show. And like Tobey Maguire is just he's meant to be really scared, and then like Diego Calva and the guy that's, I can't remember the actor that's dragged into the situation with him, where basically Margot Robbie loses a sort of like I think it's maybe poker or another kind of casino-based game, and loses a bunch of money to this scary, in inverted commas, mob boss. And it's played by Tobey Maguire. But he's just basically playing that sort of like cheeky, chappy Tobey Maguire with a grin on his face, but also at the same time trying to be like a weird perv. And it's just, it feels wrong. It's pitched. They've given this weird makeup where he has like red around his eyes, I don't know, to make him look more intimidating. Question mark. And then he leads them into some sort of dungeon where there's like a massive, what can only be described as a meat castle of a man who's just like pounding people, and he's like looking like he's getting sort of like half turned on, half like really excited about it, and he's just so bad, Dave. I mean, and I like Tobey Maguire, and I was really happy to see him kind of come back in No Way Home and stuff.
I'm kind of just loving at the moment that like 1999 is back, because Tobey Maguire and Brendan Fraser are in big box office movies.
I can't wait to see that fucking Brendan Fraser movie. Every time I see the trailer, I want to cry. Like that's it.
His episode of WTF with Mark Maron came out last week, and it was very good.
Yeah. Well, because he's one of the most likable people on the planet. The reason that episode of Scrubs was so great, you know, with him playing Jordan's brother, and then ultimately the situation with Dr. Cox and him passing away, blah, 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 all of that stuff. The reason that had so much emotional impact, aside from it being very well written, is because you just love Brendan Fraser. Like, I don't know why, but if someone just showed me a picture of Brendan Fraser, I would be like, I love this guy. You know, some people just have that charisma.
Well? The Mummy fucking rocked.
It did. It rocked, and it rocked fucking hard. Also, what was that movie he was in with Sandler?
The Mummy Returns. No,
that movie that he was in with Sandler and Buscemi, and they were a band. And they decided to hijack a radio station to play their song. I can't remember what that movie was called. It was really fucking good though. It's like a sort of dumb teen comedy. It was Airheads. Airheads is what it was called. I was gonna go onto Brendan Fraser's Wikipedia, and then just halfway through scrolling, I remembered it. But yeah, love that from back in the day. And like Encino Man, all of those, like, he started out doing those dumb comedies, and then he was like an action franchise guy, and you're like, Brendan Fraser is Hollywood royalty, and then he just went away, and you're like,
and we only found out recently why.
And that made it hurt even more. But
it's great to see him back and getting his flowers now.
Damn right. I hope he wins that fucking Oscar. Anyway, Babylon is a weird, overblown piece of shit.
I gotta say, like, what are I'm not entirely sure what there's like a 6-month period of time where Margot Robbie's agents were just signing her up for fucking whatever. Because like, I feel like between that and Amsterdam, she's had like a couple of weird, overblown piece of shit movies where she might be, and it sounds like what you're saying about Babylon, once again, she is the best constituent element of a very bad movie.
Yes. By some considerable distance.
Yeah, but hopefully Barbie is great. Because I feel like maybe her stock is dropping a little.
Yeah, but you couldn't find a more perfect combination of actor-actress to be Barbie and Ken than her and Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. I really don't know what that movie's going to be. I have no... Like, I've seen the trailer and I have no sense of what it's going to be.
Dave, it's got like Will Ferrell, Kate McKinnon, America Ferrara, who is Ugly Betty, Michael Cera is in it, Rhea Perlman is in it.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with this combination of insanely talented, funny people?
I have no idea.
It's one of those real low ceiling, real high floor movies, isn't it? Where it could be real funny and real good, like kitschy, weird, bad, good movie, or it could be just a Titanic piece of shit, like an unflushable piece of shit. I don't know. I'll tell you what wasn't a piece of shit though. Segue. was the Fabelmans.
Yes.
First of all, I'll go in with a traditional Mark Robinson style cold take. Steven Spielberg, pretty good actually.
Yeah.
So the movie starts, and I don't know if have you seen the Fabelmans, by the way?
Not yet. I really want to. Like, I love Spielberg, and I did appreciate the tweet that was out last week, and it's like, this is Steven Spielberg's best movie since, and then they list just the last movie he made, and then the one before that.
Yeah, exactly. But it starts off in the theatrical release with Steven Spielberg on the screen being like, "Hi, I'm Steven Spielberg. Welcome to my movie." And you're like, "Oh, he's like your fun uncle at a party that like it just happens to be a talented genius." He sort of like says, "Oh, thanks. Cinema means a lot to me. Thanks for coming to see my movie." And you're like, "Yeah, Steven Spielberg. Fuck yeah, I'm happy now." Like, it made me more excited to watch his movie because he said it was the most personal movie, and you can tell it kind of has that semi autobiographical feel. Basically, the premise is you've got a kid called Sammy, who's like, child in a Jewish family with a couple of sisters, and his dad is Paul Dano, who's like constantly, he's an engineer, so he's like moving around a lot for work, and then his mum is played absolutely spectacularly by Michelle Williams, as almost kind of somebody that's being carried along by this. And then you have Seth Rogen as his dad's, like, air quotes, best friend, which you figure out pretty early in the movie that there's something kind of not quite right about his status in the situation between Paul Dano, Michelle Williams, and Seth Rogen's characters. You're like, there's like an element of something's not quite going on right here. Anyway, but Sammy kind of, he gets taken to a movie at a really young age, and he sees like a big train crash, and it's almost like haunting his dreams. And he's like, so his dad buys him a train set, and he makes him crash, and like his dad gets really mad at him, so his mum thinks it's a good idea to give him a camera so he can film it just once and then he can rewatch it. But he doesn't. He films it like 10 times from loads of different angles and then puts this like reel together and shows his mum on like one of those old Super 8 cameras. And she's like, "Oh, that's amazing." And then all of a sudden, like this sort of seed is planted in his brain. And it's just this beautiful coming of age, like rite de passage movie, like told across a few different periods of his life where he's gone.
I was going to say, this is the thing, is that like it does follow the Babylon theme of like, on one level it's a movie about Hollywood wanking itself off, but if there's one person I will take that from, it's the ultimate movies are magic director. And the story of his life.
It's the story of his life, but it's done so artfully. Like all of the characters you really care about and you kind of buy into them. Like the family dynamic is complex and complicated, and you feel that there's something not quite right, but like the reveal and the emotional impact and of Sammy kind of figuring out what's going on with his mum and his dad's best friend and stuff. All of that it's just handled so well. And it's not just like an immediate gotcha moment. It's like a development, and the thing that in the end makes Sammy figure out something's not quite right is from his movie making. So all through the movie, you get different, and what I think is so clever about it is you get different phases of his life tied in, but then different emotions tied into his movie making. Like it's central to him growing up and the central to like the happy moments of his family dynamic, but then it becomes central to the sad moments of his family dynamic, and it almost makes him kind of want to give it up and put it away. But then he starts a relationship with a girl, like his first girlfriend, when they move out to California, and then all of a sudden she's like really encouraging of his filmmaking, and he's making movies for his high school, like because he's initially bullied for being Jewish, like really, and those are some of the most kind of trigger warning moments of the movie. Like if you're not into probably what was Steven Spielberg just telling his truth, which is how aggressively anti-Semitic some of the moments he faced as a kid are, that might be a trigger warning for you if you're not into seeing that sort of thing depicted in movies. But eventually like he kind of wins over like the chief dickhead jock of the movie just by the way he tells the story, even though what he was just filming was real life with a camera. And the whole thing is him being able to express the things that he can't physically a lot of the time say to people through his movies. And the best moment of that is he puts Michelle Williams kind of in his cupboard and has like his mum, like, and he has like this projector set up so it's like a dark room for her, and he shows her the footage of like her and Seth Rogen, his dad's best friend's relationship. And it's just, and he's just sat outside kind of balled up, like with his knees kind of tucked up to his chin, just waiting for her to come out and waiting to have the conversation. But all the way through the movie, this guy is telling the stories of his life and his emotions through pictures because he can't say them out loud. And that's just, it's done so well. And there's like the key pivotal moment in the movie for him of his uncle, or a granduncle, I think, like, but played by Judd Hirsch, who was just, again, melting the scenery, but in a good way. You know, it wasn't like a Babylon way where there was characters that were just, but he comes in and he's just like, you know, this whole thing will kind of tear you apart. It's like, you know, family and art don't mix, essentially. So you have to make a choice at some point. Do you follow your heart with your art? Or are you a performer? Like, are you a showman, or are you a family guy kind of thing? And the impact of that visit on him, and he's just, the rest of the movie is in complete turmoil with it. It's just so good. Like, honestly, the ultimate coming of, if you love movies, and obviously it's set in a certain period, but still, like, if you're the sort of person that falls in love, not necessarily just with movies, but with art, with music, like, you know, I used to be a musician when I was younger. I had the same journey with that as he's having with his, you know, movies and stuff. And it's just anyone who has that kind of soul or spirit of a creative person within them will completely fall in love with this movie. And all of the performances are perfectly balanced. Like, we know how good of an actor Paul Dano is, right? But he doesn't feel the need to show it off in this movie. He's reserved, and he's exactly the sort of character he needs to be. Same with Seth Rogen.
And sometimes that's what the great actors realize, is that there are roles and there are times where actually turning it down to about a 6 is what the role needs, and it's what the film needs, rather than being overwhelmed by you coming in and chewing the scenery.
Precisely that, right? And honestly, I mentioned it before, but Michelle Williams, like, there's been like, if you look at the best actress category in the Oscars this year, I've seen 3 of the 5, which is Michelle Williams in The Fabelmans, Michelle Yeoh in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Cate Blanchett in Tar. And those 3 performances are insanely great. Like, and honestly, if you ask me to choose between them all, I don't know. I'd maybe give it to Michelle Yeoh because because she kind of deserves it for like the career that she's had. And look, Michelle Williams is a brilliant actress, but you see this and you do just want to hand her every possible award.
Also, she's already got one, hasn't she?
She has, yeah. She has.
So stop being greedy, Michelle.
Yeah, stop hogging all of the Academy Awards. But yeah, no, she didn't win. I don't think did she win? No, she didn't win.
Did she not win?
No, she didn't win.
The fucking movie with Gosling?
Yeah, she did that movie with Gosling, but then there was like Brokeback Mountain she was in, wasn't she? Was
it Blue Valentine?
Blue Valentine. She was Manchester by the Sea as well. Yeah, she hasn't. Yeah. I've just clicked onto her Wikipedia. She hasn't won. And My Week with Marilyn, I completely forgotten about that. God, what is it with people making movies about Marilyn Monroe? That's one of those out
bang average movies about Marilyn Monroe.
Ana de Armas, who we both love, again, he's another fantastic actress, is Marilyn Monroe, isn't she, in that Blonde movie, which
is apparently not very good.
Yeah, maybe, but
everybody says she's great at it,
of course,
but it's bad.
I'm not surprised. I'd watch her read a phone book. She's incredible. But yeah, The Fabelmans and Michelle Williams in particular, it's a beautiful movie. It's one that will kind of bring a tear to your eye in places. It'll make you fucking broadly beam and smile and happy. And it was the contrast of those 2 movies, Dave, and just watching a fucking skilled, brilliant, artistic, perfectly like logical filmmaker versus just blah. It really felt at times like Babylon was being made by Michael Bay, like the insanity of it all. So yeah, go on.
Can I ask you about one thing about this film that I spoke this week to a friend of the show, Keith Broney, about, because it's a common interest of ours.
Right.
How good is David Lynch in his cameo?
I mean,
as John Ford.
Fantastic, Dave. Like, fucking fantastic, to the point where I don't want to mention it, but he's in the movie for about 3 minutes, right? And you've got Sammy in his office looking incredibly uncomfortable, but he's just sat behind a desk, puffing what looks more like a table leg than a cigar, right? Just sat there. And he points at one vista from one of his movies and says something. And again, I'm not going to ruin it for you. He points at one vista of one of his movies. He points at another vista of another one of his movies. And he's like, what makes these fucking interesting? And the kid's like, doesn't know. And then he like says his wisdom or whatever. And then just ends it, takes one long ass drag on this table leg. And he's like, no, fuck off out of my office. And you're like, hell yeah. And that's kind of like one of the last moments of the movie. And it's just, it's perfect.
I love David Lynch so much.
It's about... This is one of those things where you watch it and you don't think afterwards like, oh, I wish they'd done that, or I wish they'd done this. I wish this had been slightly different. I wish they'd conveyed this emotion in this way. It's nailed. This movie is nailed. Like, it might not be your favorite movie that you see this year, because there might be other things that touch you, move you in other ways, or, things that you might think are artistically more interesting or better, but it's just a great warm hug of a movie like Steven Spielberg knows how to deliver. So if you like that brand, get your ass to the cinema right now. Watch it at the cinema as well, because honestly, the direction, the feel of the film is... there's so many subtle decisions that you could sit and analyze for hours and hours, and I won't, in shot composition, that just make this movie perfect. And as I said, my favorite by far that I mentioned is the contrast between Sammy outside and his mum in the wardrobe, both going through the same emotions and then reconvening to have the conversation. Mwah, perfect.
I haven't watched anything in the cinema this week. I'm actually going to the cinema tonight. I'm going to go see M. Night Shyamalan's latest, The Knock at the Cabin, starring Big Dave.
Like, I am incredibly interested to know what that is like.
But this is the thing, like, all of his movies, like, this is the one thing you can say about him. I have to go see all of them, because like and he's so remarkably inconsistent that is like, I know I'm gonna have plenty to talk about when I come out of this, and I just don't know if it's gonna be in a positive or negative way. I'm hearing that it's like pretty good, and that Big Dave is good in it, and I love Big Dave, and I think we have just on that, before I get to what I've actually watched, I think we are probably well into the territory now where we can pretty much get a consensus that Dave Batista is the best wrestler turned actor. Not that it's a particularly high bar.
Yeah.
But I think, like, much as the two of us love Cena in Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad, I think as like a capital A actor, Batista is better. Yeah, especially when he's got tiny glasses.
Yeah, 100%. And it's he has range, so he can do what John Cena can do. Maybe not quite as well as Cena, as like this sort of goofy action star. And I do feel like in another life, like if John Cena was born in the 80s, he could have a similar sort of, Arnold Schwarzenegger style career as a smiling action star that all the kids love. But Dave Batista, have you seen fucking Blade Runner, man? Like, man. Come on now. And he was.
A lot of people, obviously, with James Gunn taking over at DC, are like, and Batista has made it very clear he's not going to be Drax anymore after Guardians 3. They're saying, like, what role? Because obviously, with his bill, everyone's saying, oh, he'll be Bane in the Batman 3 or something like that, or when they do, because they announced they're going to do Batman Brave and the Bold with Damian Wayne, that he might be the like Bane in that. But like, I'm looking at him and I'm looking at his love of tiny glasses, and I'm saying Batista is a lock for Hugo Strange.
Ooh.
I would love to see him do Hugo Strange.
Well,
like, I know the other thing, because he's hench, is that people would think maybe Freeze, but no, Strange. Give him Strange. I think that would be great. But anyway,
it needs
what I've
to shave
actually
his
seen,
barnet, though.
yeah, what I've actually seen, I watched the Netflix documentary Pamela: A Love Story, which is the Pamela Anderson documentary that was kind of made in collaboration with her.
I am real curious about this, Dave. Like, how is this?
It is so sad.
I thought so.
And so, but also so uplifting. Like, in a way that it's just like, she's like, I am still here. I have rolled with the punches and I am making the most out of every day, out of everything. Yeah, it's a real interesting one. There's a lot more about her life. Like, for somebody that has been in the public eye and perceived the way she has been for so long, there are remarkable details about her life that I, at least personally, did not know. So, again, maybe spoilers ahead, but it's weird for somebody that is, this uber famous. I'm not sure that it is spoilers. But she talks about, for instance, and I think, I believe she's got an autobiography that's coming out like in tandem with this documentary, because there are things I read that are coming up in the documentary. Like there's her, like, she tells it in a lighthearted way that she thinks it's very funny, but genuinely, if I was in the situation, I would find it extremely chilling that in the Playboy Mansion, she encountered Jack Nicholson having a threesome in a bathroom, and they locked eyes and he finished.
Oh my God.
And he basically thanked her for the assist when he saw her later.
Oh my.
Just like, the way she tells the story, apparently, I read the passage and it was just like, she thought it was hilarious, just like a part of, oh, what a weird life this is. Isn't that funny? Whereas I'm like, if I saw Jack Nicholson in the throes of a threesome in a bathroom, it would haunt me till my dying day.
Yeah, just imagine, like, because he's got such a creepy head on him at times, doesn't he, Jack Nicholson? So
yeah,
what does he look like at that point?
Yeah, does he look like that picture of him spilling the chili on the basketball court, which is one of my favorite images in history? Just a Tupperware container of homemade chili.
By the way, spilling his chili is an excellent unintentional.
Absolutely, he was spilling his chili all over that bathroom. So there's definite, like, there's to get to what's in the actual documentary is like, there's definite like high points in terms of, God, it's great. Like, she has such a great relationship with her mother during COVID. She moved back to like the little town on Vancouver Island that she grew up in, and basically had bought a plot of land right beside their childhood home, and COVID was her opportunity to like return to her roots and like build that place back up. And now, like, herself and her mom both have houses on the property, and that's really sweet. And you get to see, I didn't think you would get to see them because I didn't know if they'd want to be involved in the documentary, but her and Tommy Lee's sons, Brandon, and I can't think of the other one's name, the two of them are both in it prominently from about the halfway point on, and it's great to see they've got such a strong relationship. And there is a really nice arc of like her talking about like one of the many struggles she's faced is the struggle to be taken seriously. And like right towards the end, because it is fairly like chronological order, the story, it's done really well in that, like, there's footage of her now contextualizing the stuff they're talking about in the past, and then also she was an obsessive diary keeper since childhood. So she was saying that like some of the stuff would be too painful for her to actually read out on camera, so they got in an actress to do kind of like voiceover of, so you're getting past Pamela's interpretation of what's happening as it's happening, present Pamela's contextualization now that she has the benefit of hindsight, and then actual like archival footage and Unfortunately, we all know, for better or worse, that she was also an obsessive like home movie maker. Like, so there is a lot of footage of her like unguarded, you know, at home, just being herself, and same with Tommy, and same with like the people around her and stuff like that. So I mentioned the documentary makers were like pigs in shit with the amount of primary source material they had to tell this woman's life story. But yeah, just like on that note that I mentioned a few minutes ago, like some of the like the horrifying things that I hadn't realized, I did not know that she was a repeated victim of abuse as a child.
Yeah.
Or that she had been raped on more than one occasion after that period of abuse. I didn't realize that while she was filming Barbed Wire, infamous, so bad it's kind of good movie, that she miscarried her first child on set. Different bits and pieces like that just kind of were just absolutely horrifying. You also get to see, because of the timing it was filmed, you get to see her reaction to Pam and Tommy.
That's what I was going to ask.
Which is not favourable at all.
But the thing is, you come off Pam and Tommy and it's the same sense of melancholy as like, this poor woman, like all this horrible shit has happened to her. Yeah. Like, and all she ever did was just want to be like an actress, and then B, you know, want to be taken seriously. And C, she was just like such a good-natured, sweet person. Just people repeatedly took advantage of her in so many ways.
She and her sons both talk about how like their perspective on the whole thing was that they didn't care how she was portrayed in it. It was the fact that like it was 20 years ago and she's still trying to get people to stop talking about it, and they just put out a series and made money off it, and she didn't make money off it.
Oh, she didn't like, get cut in on that?
Nope.
That's really unfair.
She is like, they're making a commentary on her being exploited while exploiting her. She's like, Tommy didn't give his consent, she didn't give her consent. Now Tommy kind of like, they do show footage of like, once the show was being made, Tommy took the stance of fuck it, you know, whatever. But for her, who has struggled much more than she talked about, like, he was a rock star, so everything that happened with them and the tape and everything like that worked for him and his brand. Whereas like she was literally on the point, like Barbed Wire, as bad as the movie turned out, she was really trying to make a stab at being like taken seriously. Long term. Like, this was her sideways step from TV sex symbol into like, she's going to like sex up this role, but then like her vision was to move on and be like, you know, serious dramatic actress and things like that. And what basically she described was like, her life fell apart after that tape, as you might imagine. And she was like, her career was a write-off. She was just like, Barbed Wire bombed, and she's like, part of that was just on like, the film wasn't what we wanted it to be, and part of it was that like, because the miscarriage happened, like it just really affected production, like her, you know, ability to give what she wanted to the role and things like that. And she was like, the tape so put her in a box that she could never get out of, that the next 20 years were basically, if I want to make any money at all to provide for my family, I have to lean into it now, and I don't want to. So they showed bits like, you know, her cameo at the start of Scary Movie. They showed like a couple of series she was on, a lot of her talk show appearances, her appearance on the comedy, her doing a Comedy Central roast and stuff like that. About how she's like, I absolutely didn't want to do it. I hated being asked all this stuff. I hated being like made the punchline or being dehumanized the way I was, but I basically did it to provide for my family. Or in the case of the Comedy Central roast, like she was trying to turn the Pam Anderson brand into making money for PETA. So like that's what she'd do, like, you know, nude photo shoots for PETA ad campaigns, or she did specifically the Comedy Central roast. She said she didn't want to get paid, but if they wrote a $250,000 check to PETA, then she'd do it.
Yeah.
So like just a genuinely like really good human being who I think, like, the other thing, you know, with her, I think she's on 7 marriages now as of like when the documentary came out. She talks about it and being like, one of her philosophies in life is be fearless in love, and that idea that like she would never want to be jaded or guarded going into a relationship, because yes, like to a certain extent, like she obviously doesn't wish that all her marriages had fallen apart, but she said like she goes in 100% because that's how she views love, you know. And it's such a horrible shame, because she talks about how like she never ever had love like she did with Tommy Lee.
Yeah.
But between the trauma of the things that happened to them in the marriage, and then him being an abusive dickhead, she's just like, I will never find anybody that I will love like him, but I also can never love him again. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Because they tried it again, didn't they? They got back together.
Yeah, they did. They got back together, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
also
like
with professional football, Adil Rami for a while, which to me was one of the...
She doesn't mention him by name, but she mentions the incidences with him. Because I think legally she can't name him. But football fans, we all know who she's talking about. But they get through the Kid Rock stuff. But it's funny because she was just like, you know, everybody like... Basically, we all know what we think of Kid Rock, and it's really funny because she calls him by his actual name. Is his actual name like Bob or something like that?
Rob.
Yeah.
Rob. Bob.
I think she called him Bob. Yeah. But she was like, you know, say what you want about him, but he was just unbelievable with my kids. Do you know what I mean? And she was just like, that was the big thing that brought it over the edge for me. And she goes like, it just wasn't going to work with him, but like she was like, he was like, it seems like of the subsequent partners she had, he was the one that made the most effort with the boys. By
the way, the Rick Solomon one is the one that really hurts, because like he is...
she tells a very like, it's like he's a horrible bloke, right?
Yeah.
But she tells a very funny story. Like she sees it as funny now in hindsight. I'm sure it wasn't at the time, where she was just like, everything was going well, and then I found a crack pipe in the Christmas tree. And she's just like, and he still denies it to this day. She's like, you know, obviously the relationship fell apart. She goes, we're on good terms now, because apparently they were actually friends far preceding the relationship, and they're friends again now by the sounds of it. And he goes, but like, she's like, still now he'll say that it wasn't my crack pipe in the Christmas tree. And she's like, well, there's only 2 of us and I wasn't smoking crack.
This sounds like a real kind of nice thing, because I almost feel semi-guilty now for watching that Pam and Tommy thing, but a lot of the emotions that you've conveyed that she felt like are actually portrayed really, really well. And I'm sure if she watched it, I think as a piece of art, like she might not be able to watch it because of the emotions and stuff. Like it was produced really well, but it just sucks that she got nothing out of it. It really does. And I love Lily James, by the way. She's one of my favorite actresses.
She's apparently said in the books that she saw some clips, I think, of Lily James as her, and she thought she did very well.
Yeah,
she was complimentary of the performance, but just not the show. But I think it was a really good documentary, a really eye-opening one, and it's great to get her to like basically set the record straight on what people think about her. In her own words, and then like there is a lovely kind of sweet ending to it, where like she hasn't been getting opportunities because like her career's in the toilet, and then she gets a chance. A musical director takes a chance on her to be Roxy in Chicago on stage. And so you get to see her like rehearsing and do it. She's like, I can't sing, I can't dance. But she still goes for it and receives like great reviews. And, you know, you end on that hopeful note that it's like, you know, I don't know what the future holds for me, but she feels some sort of vindication that she has kind of, after all these years, been able to prove that she's not just the Pam Anderson people think of, you know.
Yeah, but that was the thing that I really liked about the way that, again, I think if the way she was portrayed in that show honestly sounds so like in line with how she is, like from what you told me about the documentary, and the assumptions that are made, and again, it's just, you know, what society does, and I think we're better at it now, but like the whole, you know, culture of like almost like slut shaming that occurs with all of this stuff, and just assuming that because somebody is something that they have all of the personality traits that go along with one, like particularly their actions or whatever. Like it kind of always felt like she was a reluctant sex symbol, but she was a sex symbol. Like she was something that, you know, like she had the way she kind of had to market herself a lot of the time.
Yeah,
wasn't necessarily in line with who she was as a person, but also recognized that, like, making money, and it says like making money for Peter, like you said there, by having people take the piss out of her and stuff. So.
One of the most uncomfortable things in the whole documentary is watching back clips of her on various talk shows.
Yeah,
and watching the way that the talk show hosts speak about her while she's fucking sitting there.
Yeah, well,
you know, the two in particular that I think were particularly like awful. I don't think if anybody remembers. Yeah.
No, Dave. I was gonna say fucking David Letterman.
No, like sorry, they were talking to me. No, the two that are singled out the most are Larry King,
right,
and Jay Leno. And Jay Leno, I remember, like I've read about before with these kind of things, like. Was very bad at, like, she was a constant punchline in his monologues, and some of the things he says when she's like on the couch beside him. I can't remember if there's clips from Letterman. I know there's you hear Conan's voice at one point, but it's not. I don't think you hear him make a gag. You just hear him introduce her in the montage of her being on like media appearances and stuff. You hear. Oh God! Like especially with the benefit of hindsight, Matt Lauer talk about her.
Yeah.
From NBC, and then obviously, like, I mean, this isn't going to come as a great galloping shock to anybody, but Howard Stern.
Oh yeah, well, I mean,
like Howard Stern talking to her to her face about how I own the tape on DVD, and shit like that. Yeah.
Well, and everyone knows Jay Leno is a terrible human being. Like that. Yeah. That's been widely publicized, I think.
Open secret.
Yeah. I think anyone that likes Conan also hates Jay Leno. Like that's kind of like a sort of, you know, cats and dogs style situation.
The only person that hates Jay Leno more than Conan O'Brien or almost everybody else is David Letterman. I don't know if you've ever seen, there's like, there's a great YouTube supercut of all the like late night moments that are referring to the like Conan being shoved out of NBC.
Yeah.
And there are so many like just like I can't believe like David Letterman like multiple minutes of monologuing about what a piece of shit Jay Leno was on television.
Yeah. And they let him get away with it because it was kind of his thing at the time. But that after Conan does get let go from NBC, and there's the whole situation with Leno, he goes on Letterman, and they just sort of like he goes on, and him and Letterman just kind of sit there and look at each other for a beat, like, and everyone's laughing because they're like, well,
because he goes, so what do you want to talk about?
What do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Great bit. That is very good television, I must say.
Hey, let's change tack completely in terms of subject matter, but it's also within the genre of documentary. And this is something that a lot of young people I work with have talked about this, and I was like, no, this is a field I have absolutely no interest in. I'm never going to watch it. I don't care. But they talked about it to an extent where I'm just like, okay, I'm actually going to have to watch some of this so I can understand the references they're making when I'm around. And 6 episodes in, I've got to say, Jack, I've become a Drive to Survive pervert.
It's good though, right?
Holy shit, this is a great documentary series.
Yeah.
Like, I can't explain to you how little of a shit I give about Formula One.
Yeah.
Or at least, should I say, used to give.
Yeah. But this is the thing, though. I have heard this exact conversation with so many people, people around me who never gave a shit about Formula One. I had like a sort of borderline interest in it. Like I used to watch it a lot when I was younger, but like, not to the extent of like our friend Matt Niner, who absolutely loves it and has done for a long time. But
I think we all, because there was a bubbling of popularity of it in the 90s.
Yeah. The sort of
so like we all know Schumacher. We all have names periodically racking around in our head, like Mika Hakkinen and
Jacques
stuff
Villeneuve.
like that. Yeah, stuff like that. But it went away for a long time in terms of like just kind of general widespread hitting the normies level of popularity. Like we all know who Lewis Hamilton is, but outside of that, you kind of maybe a Vettel, but outside of that, you kind of need to be watching to know who a lot of these people are now.
Yeah.
Whereas they were much more kind of household names back then. But I you've hit on something there that what I've noticed is that I think solely because of Drive to Survive, it's getting back out to the normies. And now, like, I know in Ireland, right, when I was a teenager into young adult, the big, like, soccer and GAA are the number one popular sports here in Ireland, but the number two slot has always been kind of rotating. So in the 90s, when I was a small child, it was basketball. Huge Jordan, the Bulls. So every primary and secondary school had a basketball team. Everyone wanted to play basketball, fucking Space Jam, what have you.
Yeah.
In the 2000s and 2010s, it was rugby. You know, thanks to like the arrival of Brian O'Driscoll and a golden generation of Irish players, everybody got really interested in it.
Sidebar, Brian O'Driscoll, one of the loveliest human beings.
Genuine.
Like I saw him in an hour-long interview, and oh my god, that guy is just the best. What a lovely guy! Yeah,
he's like a real genuine guy.
Yeah.
Now it seems like, and it's weird because there's no real. Usually there has to be some sort of Irish connection going on for like Irish young people to start getting really into it. But I think it's just that it's on Netflix that there's a huge developing interest in Formula One amongst the younger generation now. It just was not there beforehand. And I think you've got to put the majority of the credit on Drive to Survive.
No, I think you put all of the credit on Drive to Survive.
I think that this series does an unbelievable job of so quickly establishing the personalities and the stakes at play for each individual.
Yeah.
Like again, it's a really it's hard to like for most sports, it's hard to make a documentary series about an entire competition, because like, for example, if you were to do one about the entire Premier League, like 20 teams, huge squads at each team, you know, it's a lot of personalities. You end up having to cherry pick one or two people to focus on.
Yeah, it's also media managed as well to a disgusting level, so you're never really going to get into the nitty gritty like you do in this show. Because
there's only 20 seats in Formula One. It allows you to take a look at a couple of people at a time. And what they do is each episode will usually rotate around two personalities. Sometimes it's teammates at the same racing team. Sometimes it's like, you know, career rivals that may have been teammates before are on rival teams now, or vice versa. And sometimes it's like the story of like the racing team principals as well, and their careers and the pressure that they're under, or there might be the kind of the B story on the episode might be about the highs and lows of a particular racing team. I think it does a really good job. Now, am I at the point where I'm going to sit down and watch fucking Saturday qualifying yet? No. I'm not there, but I'm also only 6 episodes into the first season of a 4-season so far documentary. So by the end, I might be sitting here head to toe in Haas gear, ready to roll. I think all the personalities in it have like, and obviously this is the job of the documentary, but everybody has an interesting arc. So for people coming in who have no Formula One interest or knowledge, you within a couple of episodes have a reason to care about almost everyone. Like the only 2 that 6 episodes in they haven't really touched yet in terms of focus are Vettel and Hamilton, who are the 2 that I imagine, like, it's kind of the whole, like, how do you make a movie about a sympathetic Superman thing, where it's like, how do you, like, and I'm interested to see when they eventually get to them, because, like, they will, is like, how do you make a compelling story about the 2 that are so untouchably further ahead than absolutely everybody else at this time in 2018 when this is being filmed. Like, I'm really fascinated by that. But yeah, no, it's really fucking good. The episodes are so Moorish. I think something you mentioned there, the level of candidness, is unbelievable.
Well, that's what I like about it. You actually feel like you're getting to know the human beings.
Yeah, something I really didn't expect, and it's something like this candidness is not just evident in this documentary, but clearly, like, this candidness is something that just happens through the course of, like, the coverage of the sport, because they show press conferences where, like, some shit goes down and they pull in the 2 people that have real problems or beef with each other, and they're just there sitting in a press conference in front of the F1 press slagging each other off.
Sat next to each other.
The episode I just watched last night, either it was the last episode I watched, the episode before was the one where in 2018 Red Bull opted not to renew their agreement to have Renault provide their engine for them, right? Because they had, I think they called it a rough marriage, was what the press called it, between them, where they'd always been sniping at each other about how, like, Red Bull were complaining that Renault wouldn't allow them any input into improving or developing the engine, and then Renault would slag off Red Bull for being unreasonable or whatever. And all this is going on. There's also, like, that's the B story in this episode at the start. And the other story has been, like, for the whole season, Daniel Ricciardo, his deal is coming up at the end, and Max Verstappen is the new, like, hot driver on the circuit, and he's feeling that even though he's just turning 30, that he's being shoved to the background in his team. So even though he's always been at Red Bull and he came up through the Red Bull Academy system, that he's like, I might just have to fucking go. And there's a moment where you think, oh no, he's going to stay, because he starts outperforming Verstappen. Verstappen's, like, rash, careless, kind of him being only 21 and just him taking risks that he really shouldn't be aren't paying off for him in that season. And Ricciardo is just like the steady hand, and he starts, like, overperforming in races after a shaky start to the season. And you think, okay, well, things are going well, and him and Christian Horner, who's the principal, are, like, you know, they're good friends. It's like, oh, he's going to stay. So Red Bull make this announcement that they're not going to keep the engine. And there's this press conference where, like, the Renault principal and Horner are having a go at each other in it. And then, like, within, I think, 3 days, it's announced that Renault have signed Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah.
And you see, like, them running into each other before they go into another presser, and the 2 of them sniping at each other. Like, it's really, like you said, particularly with football, you would never be allowed to see this shit.
No chance.
Not one chance. But I think in this case, it's to the benefit, and it's the proof is in the pudding. by being this transparent and by showing all this stuff, they have created a fascinating series, and they have generated a huge amount of interest from people, because now people feel like they're actually seeing it warts and all, and they're seeing the real personalities of people and not these manicured, crafted images put forward by like a team of publicists or whatever. You're actually seeing what's going on. I have a real fascination with how this sport, it doesn't necessarily encourage, but it doesn't dissuade two people on the same team from hating each other. Like, about half the teams in F1 at this point in 2018, the two drivers actively dislike each other.
Yeah.
It's great.
And
the two Force India guys, the two Force India guys hate each other. Verstappen and Ricciardo are not pals at all. I'm trying to think, is there a team I've seen so far where the two guys actually get along? I don't know if there is. And yeah, it has been going on for years, and I suppose part of it is because usually what you have is you've one driver who's on the way up and one who's on the way down at the team. So there will always be that, like, the younger guy is trying to cement his place as the lead driver, the A guy at the team, while the other guy is wrestling with the reality that he's not the hot shot anymore, that they're obviously bringing this guy in to ultimately replace him. It's a great dynamic, and it's a fucking great series, man. It's a fucking great series.
It's great. It is great. Yeah.
And now I'm fascinated because they're doing the same for they produced a series about tennis.
Yeah.
And
Breaking Point is called, I think.
And they're doing one about golf as well now.
Oh, are they? That'll be good.
I believe I read that. Don't quote me on it, but I believe that the next project from that, like, I don't know if it's the exact same people or it's like the same production studio or whatever. That golf is the next one. And I'll tell you what, like, I totally respect your love of that game, and I enjoy some crazy golf myself. But whatever about Formula One, if they can manage the monumental task of making me give a fucking scuttering shit about golf, then my hat's off, sir.
I think I could get you into golf. I think if we like sat down and watched the last round of the Masters together, I think you could get into it.
Tennis, no problem. I love tennis. Yeah. I just don't have the time to keep up with tennis.
I watched the Australian Open final last week. Again, Djokovic, aside from being probably an irritating character that I don't really like all that much, is the best tennis player in the world and has been for a long time now, and it feels good to see him like being successful, aside putting all of his bullshit to one side,
aside from his woeful jib.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my favorite sportsmen of my lifetime is Roger Federer. I'm a huge Roger Federer fan. I do recall myself and Alan Forel once getting into not a heated argument, but definitely a disagreement, because he is a huge tennis fan. And he is also a huge Rafa Nadal fan.
Yeah.
The King of Clay himself. So I believe like we once got into a disagreement at a wrestling show about, Federer versus Nadal.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll watch Wimbledon every year.
Yeah.
But it's one of those where like between football and wrestling and stuff like that, and now I'm trying more actively to get into NFL, as you know.
Well, I mean, being a lifelong Chargers fan, it's natural for you.
You cut me, I bleed blue, my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I just don't have the time to watch all the majors.
It's tough.
Unfortunately.
It's tough to fit them in.
Like, it's really going to be fucking complicated if I start having a graw to watch F1 now, because they fucking take a while.
It's like an hour and a half on a Sunday. It's not too bad.
But it's also you're committing the Saturday for qualifying if you're if you get really into it.
Do you have to?
Well, again, some of the most dramatic bits that have happened on this show so far are happening at qualifying. You know, so look, I'll update on my level of F1 perversion over the next few weeks, because I'm just like because there's 4 seasons of it, I'm happy and I want to binge it, but also I'm loving it so much I only want to watch a couple episodes at a time, so there'll always be more.
Yeah.
And that's when you know the value of like a really good show.
By the way, just your name, you mentioned in the name Christian Horner before, made me immediately angry.
Yeah.
So like that's the level of commitment you get to the characters in this show.
Something else I didn't know, Christian Horner, there's an episode where it kind of looks into his life and his job as the principal of Red Bull Racing. And there's a bit where he's at his house and he's hanging out with his wife, Jerry Halliwell.
Yep.
I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Was not if you sat me down and got me to list 100 things I was expecting to see from Formula One Drive to Survive, Ginger Spice was not going to be one.
That was her first marriage as well. Like, she wasn't married all the way through those sort of peak Spice Girl, girl power era years. Yeah. And yet she married
Christian
Horner.
She may have had a couple of high profile engagements.
Yeah, she did. But she I want to say like 10, 15 years ago, she just married Christian Horner.
Yeah, they have like kids, don't they?
Yeah.
Because I think there was kids in it. I think they're both their kids, not from like a previous relationship or anything. But yeah, just fucking wild.
Yeah. There you go. But also, fuck Christian Horner. Sorry.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So far, I can't wait to see where the fuck Christian Horner comes from, because so far, again, because this is the season where like he is moving heaven and earth to accommodate Ricardo, and Ricardo fucks off.
Yeah.
It kind of makes him look pretty sympathetic. So I'm excited to see why he's an arse.
By the way,
I have not Googled any single person or anything, because I don't want, like, if people are starting to jump between teams, I don't want to know where they are now.
Yeah.
I want to let the documentary play out, and then I'll Google away.
But the 2021 Formula One World Championship season is, in my lifetime, I would say, the most dramatic end to a Formula One. And I don't know if you know what happened, so I'm not going to spoil it for you. No, Jack. My level of understanding of Formula One prior to this was Michael Schumacher was very good. Yeah, but season 4 of the show and the 2021 World Championship, that is the Vince McMahon fucking Brett screw job of all screw jobs.
Okay.
Right.
Can I ask you actually a question about that? Like probably season 3 and 4.
Yep.
How much time do they spend feeling sorry for themselves when COVID happens? Because like that's something I've gotten tired of in documentaries. It's just like, oh man, I have to live through it. I don't want to go through this bummer again. Like that nearly stopped me dead watching All or Nothing Tottenham.
Yeah. Look, it's part, like specifically the very start of season 3 is a massive part of it, because how could it not be?
You can't avoid it, but
if you're going to make an accurate documentary, if you are documenting what happened at that time, so the start, yes, by the end, not so much. And it's a lot of COVID, but there's also, like, at the start, but then you also get into some of the kind of like social political things that were happening in 2020, and like a lot of the Lewis Hamilton kind of referencing the George Floyd thing, and then trying to kind of get like a Black Lives Matter movement and respect in Formula One, and then some of the barriers that he faces during that. But yeah, there's those two things that kind of are on the burner during that season, but it's no different, I would say, to the format of the show regularly, and most of the shows again are about the teams and the drivers. They're not just all about COVID, but it is, like I say, at the start of the series, it has to be. Sorry, mate, but it has to be a big part of it.
That's all right. It was either going to be that or footage not found. There's only two ways you can go. Yeah. Hey, I'm blown up after talking about my documentary odyssey this week. Tell me about what you've been playing.
I have been playing, and I haven't played loads of it. I've probably only played like 2 hours of it, but holy shit, were they 2 hours where my eyes were on fire in the best way possible. I've been playing Hi-Fi Rush, Dave. Now, how much do you know about this game?
I have seen it. I have downloaded it, but I have not played it.
Yeah. Okay.
I had, peering behind the curtain, I've had quite a hectic week.
Yeah.
So I've kind of been like, because it's one of those games where I imagine this is full focus headphones on. I was hesitant to start it because all I wanted was kind of watch my Drive to Survive in the background while noodling away at FIFA or something like that.
This is not a game that you can, I'd say, noodle around in the background and play, because a lot of it is reliant on you being able to hear and connect with the soundtrack of the game. But basic premise is you play a guy called Chai, which I enjoy because I really enjoy a chai latte. And basically he starts off and he's got a bad arm. He wants to volunteer for this program where he gets a cybernetic arm. Basically, he wants a robot arm. He goes in to get the this weird sort of robotic center, / medical facility / weird test center with loads of like gears and cogs and everything all around. And randomly, somebody finds his belongings and takes exception to the fact that he has like an iPod there. So they chuck his iPod off the side of this really high kind of balcony, and it lands in the machine that's given him his arm, and it gets embedded into his chest. So his gimmick is that he connects with music and the sort of cybernetics in his body, and like he feels things on the beat. And that is a way to set up the fact that this is a rhythm action game. Rhythm action / platformer, I'd say, because it's a lot more about platforming than kind of I initially expected. But yeah, he's basically everything that you do in this game, everywhere that you go, there'll be like a different song, whether it's an originally composed song for the game or a song that's like, you know, a commercial pop song or rock song that people would know. For instance, there's a Svan song in this game, or Swan or Zvan, or however you want to pronounce that Billy Corgan offshoot band. But it starts off with like the Black Keys just like pumping out, and you know you're
I don't know if I've had occasion to ever say it on the show before.
Yeah, Black Keys are good.
Fucking Rubber Factory and Brothers, absolute bangers of albums.
Yeah, exactly. So you're just, you know, Black Keys is pumping out, and you're, you know, feeling all this stuff to the beat of this music player that's now embedded in your chest, and all of your attacks need to sync up with the beat and the timing of the beat. You can just attack in general, but you do a lot more damage if you sync your attacks up to the beat of the song that's playing in the background. And they gradually kind of unveil more breadcrumbs of being like, right, if you collect, you know, these valves, you get health upgrade, or if you collect like these different things, you get like kind of better attacks and different kind of things that you can do. And they do a good job gradually getting you used to the mechanics of the game. But the combat itself, because of the beat gimmick, is insanely satisfying. And you've got this robot arm, right? But every time you do an attack, you kind of summon all this junk into your robot arm to form a flying V guitar, and that flying V guitar is that flying V guitar is what you use to dole out the fucking punishment of these attacks. And yeah, it's just really fucking cool. It's cell shaded and beautiful. It is an assault of color on the eyes, like I said before, but in a great way. And you know, we've had self-shaded games and stuff in the past, like I think of like Beautiful Joe and stuff like that. But
13.
Yeah, exactly. There is a level of clarity and beauty to this cell shade where it just kind of looks like you're playing a cartoon, like full on, just completely immersed in how crazy these graphics are. Like, you know, showing this to somebody like 15-20 years ago to say, okay, we've got to this point, and I'm not saying it's like the most high res thing in the world, but already I'm looking at what is potentially going to be my list on the 2023 Game of the Year for best looking game. And holy shit, if this doesn't make the top 10, then this year's going to be the best looking video games that have ever been made in history, because this thing is just outrageously cool to look at. And it's just, yeah, it's fun, high action, high octane. You know, when you play a video game and you're just like, I'm just enjoying myself. Like, I'm not having to think, yeah, there's like a story about, you know, what's happening to Chai, and, you know, you get like a little cat pal who's basically initially like a little robot cat, but then turns into like a little football head version of a cat that kind of like follows you around as you're going through stuff, and you can converse with your cat pal, who is of course 808, which named after the drum machine. So it's kind of perfect in that sense. But yeah, just everything about this game just kind of brings me joy. And I always say this with video games, like one of my primary things that I like, I'll love to play like a really serious video game with like great story beats or whatever every now and then. But for something like this, I guess what a lot of people might have thought, like this is just a pick up kind of disposable thing, but it's really fucking fun, like really satisfying to play. It's the sort of thing where if somebody finished this game and they're like, I'm going to do another playthrough, I would completely understand, because I feel like the more I understand how the attack gimmick works with getting things on time and then getting to, do like a big move at the end of, getting like 4 beats in a bar and everything, like specifically as well, if you're a musician or you've been involved in making music and stuff in the past, you pick up the rhythm action side of it so quickly, and you just kind of tune into the beat of the music in the background and the variances to that, and yeah, just very cool game, I would say. And yeah, platforming sections as well. It's mostly a 3D platformer, but you'll have like these cool 2D platforming sections as well, where it'll kind of go like into that side scroll view, and it still keeps the overall look and feel of the game, while at the same time making that kind of dimension shift. So yeah, like thumbs up really for this. This is a proper fun video game, and I would recommend downloading it, because Big Philly Spence has given you it for now on Game Pass right now if you can get it.
Yeah, the Jet Set Radio comparisons intrigued me a little bit, but the one that really got me was Sunset Overdrive, which, as you know, I'm a big champion of.
Yeah.
And I love that game, and I think because no one had an Xbox One at the time, I don't think it got the credit it deserved. I thought it was an incredible game by Insomniac, and people, it's still free on Game Pass. People should check out Sunset Overdrive. But yeah, I'm probably going to get to Hi-Fi Rush this weekend. Looking forward to that. What I've been playing, and it's something you could probably chip in on, Jack, is Hitman Freelancer.
Oh yeah,
which went live last week. This is the new. It's like an arcade mode for Hitman that structures these like little campaigns where you must take down a syndicate of targets. That can be split across any one of, I believe, 19 of the game's maps.
Hell yeah.
And it is, to an extent, procedurally generated. It's a roguelike.
Mm-hmm.
So your playthrough and your syndicate that you pick will not bear any resemblance necessarily to mine. So that in and of itself is cool. And if that was the only wrinkle, that would be like a little bit interesting. They layer in stuff to it that makes it even more compelling. Like, for example, I thought that, like you complete missions and you do like side quests and stuff like that in the main game to up your mastery at that particular map.
Yeah.
And that unlocks different like routes of egress, different suits, different weapons, different opportunities, stuff like that. Whereas here, that mastery counts towards shit all. You have a separate, it will do your overall level on the game. And I was surprised, but then I guess I remember I was about halfway through trying to get my mastery maxed out on Hitman 1 and Hitman 2, having done it on Hitman 3. I had forgotten that my overall level on the game was like 177, which it's like, it's nothing to you, I'm sure, who are like, you've probably broken the scale, but like, I guess for most people that just dip in and out of those games, that probably sounds a bit insane.
Yeah.
But there is a freelancer mastery. And with that comes access to different parts of your safe house. I haven't unlocked any of them yet, so I can't tell you what's in there. Maybe Jack can illuminate us on that. But also, the thing that's fascinating to me is that when you're dropped in, so at the start, you have no equipment. And I mean no equipment. No funny costumes, no cool gadgets, no lockpicks, nothing. and you basically pick up everything you need on the map that you land at, and only some of that gear, if it is unique, can you bring back with you, and then you will have it in your case, your weapons cases, in your safe house for use on future missions. You also have a loadout thing where you can't just like absolutely deck yourself out with all the things you find in your first mission for your second mission. I'm assuming that with your levels of mastery, you get to be able to bring more tech, but I'm not that far, so I don't know for sure. The other wrinkle that makes it very interesting is that the two targets, you will have two targets on a map when you land on your first step of taking out a syndicate. The only way to get to the next step is to eliminate both targets, and those two targets are just going to be random people on the map. They are not the two targets that were like in the story version of the game on the map. They could be anywhere. So I was in, God, what's the name of that map from 3, Jack? Chongqing?
Yeah.
Chongqing. So that was where my first mission in my first syndicate was, and I got the luck of the draw. My first target was just a chef who I could find out in the street at one point, because he's the one that, the alley where the woman takes is out there pacing, trying to remember the code to get into the underground lab.
Yeah.
So that target pops out into the alley to have a smoke, and you can just drop down from the balcony over the entrance to the lab and just get him without raising any alarm or anything like that. But the other target was down in the lab. And from what I understand from other people is like the two where they are, like somebody else could get Chongqing and end up with two guys that are completely different spots on the map.
Yeah.
The other thing that like you encounter there is that you get like side optional objectives. So the ones I had in my first one were like, don't ever get caught on CCTV camera for 1,000 bonus currency.
Mercers.
And the other two were to take out 3 guards each with an SMG, and then a sniper rifle was the other one.
Yeah.
And the gear drops have changed as well, because the sniper rifle isn't where the sniper rifle was in the story mode. You know, there's one up on that billboard on top of a building in that map. It's not there anymore.
No.
So I don't know where the sniper rifle is in that level anymore. The other thing is, if you reach a fail state, you have to start again, because if you fail to take out your target, that target alerts the rest of the syndicate and they go into hiding. So you have to start the syndicate mission again.
Yeah.
And each syndicate mission, I believe, is 3 stages, Jack?
It is, yeah. Before you work your way up to the final one.
You basically have to get through 3 phases without ever alerting your targets that you're coming for them, which is sometimes easier than other times. I imagine I'm going to randomly get assigned one where 2 targets might be relatively close together. Also, you can't save inside, and like you can't just be in the middle of the Chongqing map and have like gotten rid of one target and then save and come back and do the other target later. Once you drop into the map, you have to beat both of them. If you try to leave the map to go back to your safe house, even it will alert the other target. You have to start again.
Yeah.
So it's like for people like us who obsessively played the Hitman games to completion. It's a nice meaty challenge that once again reinterprets these incredible clockwork puzzles that are these maps. So I'm falling way back in love with it again. Have you been playing much of it?
I have played it, yes, and I really like it. So you were surprised to hear, I'm sure. I think it's a really cool take on it. Another thing you should mention as well, Dave, is that if you die, if you eat it, all the shit that you have with you in the level, that's
if
gone.
you die in real life.
Yeah, exactly. You perish. It's over for you. No, but if you die, all the shit that you have with you in that level is gone at that point, and it isn't in your base anymore. And I found that out the hard way too, where I was like, oh yeah, I've got this thing. Cool. It was like this. It's a silent submachine gun that you can get on Dubai. and I had that, and then I died, and then went into the next mission looking for my silencer machine gun, and it wasn't there. I was like, oh, you son of a bitch. Absolutely furious. But yeah, it's just a good reinvention of Hitman, and like you say, that the key element to me is that you're not replaying the same targets over and over again. So like, even in the elusive target arcade, which I think is really cool, because not everyone was around when all of those elusive targets dropped, and you might have missed one.
Some people missed Gary Busey.
Yeah, exactly. But you might have missed one here, you might have missed one there, something. So having all of those as a sort of, rolling kind of...
You also might have failed one, because you only got, when those were originally released, you only got one shot at them.
Exactly, you got one shot, one opportunity. You had to seize that moment and capture it and not let it slip. So,
damn it.
Yeah.
Absolute piece of shit.
It would have been gone forever. But you just try not to lose yourself in that situation, obviously. And you just carry on plugging your way through the elusive target arcade, and then you might find something in there that you're like, oh yeah, this one I didn't get to finish this, or I died in this, or whatever. But they're still the same targets though. So when you keep playing for elusive target arcade, you're like, oh yeah, I've done this one before, and this section I've done before, or whatever. And yeah, I love replaying the main missions. And one of the best things about Hitman by miles is that there are so many different rewards and things that you can unlock, and different ways to kill the main characters, but you are still killing the characters and the same protagonist every time you play a level. This is a complete switch up, because you obviously had the contract system in the game that allowed you to kind of people online to create something, and you can just go and try and unlock, play through and unlock and kill people in this order or whatever. And there are those little mini chapters that they create and DLC things, but this kind of feels like everything that you're doing is like building towards something. So you're playing like randomized versions of the levels every time, with like random complications that you can get, different, like additional coins for, or additional mercers as they're called in the game. But then it's not just those as well. Like within the levels, there'll be like a courier who's like got a load of money, and if you can figure out the courier and find the courier, there's also assassins as well within the level, so that
I haven't found any of them yet.
So that was how I died, is that the assassins in the level, if they kind of cotton on to what you're doing and they find you, they're brutal. So like, you can take a fair few slugs and run away if you're getting shot at in Hitman, and obviously the screen will fade towards black, but you might be able to get away from it. If an assassin finds you and they have a clear line of sight at you, it's like a couple of bullets and that's it. You're done. Over. Finished.
Wow.
Finito. So again, you might kind of, if you carry on playing through, you might kind of want to avoid assassins. Again, I found that out the hard way. But it's just adding all these cool little riffs and tricks and things, and it keeps what is an incredibly well-designed sandbox in each one of these levels fresh. Gives you new takes on it. You start thinking about routes that you never would have taken previously towards a goal, because you never had to go to that area of a level, and you're going to pockets of levels and, hanging out in places and getting different lines of sight than you would normally when you play the game. It's almost like you've got that, I know I have anyway, that stored up version of how I need to do this thing quickly in Hitman on this level to get to this point, or to kill this person quickly if I want to try something different. Whereas in this, it makes you think every single time you play through, how do I do it? You are like absorbing, watching patterns of people, and it's different every time, and same levels, different takes. So even if you had like a couple of the little playthroughs that you're doing and you had the same level and one back to another, completely different targets, completely different complications, completely different methods to kill, completely different locations for things like the assassins and things like the courier and the syndicate within there. So yeah, it's just another way for this game to reinvent itself, and it just shows how fucking solid it is. I don't know many games really, apart from like you have DLC chapters, and they've had DLC chapters, but I don't know how many games could take the sandbox that they have and then just reinvent the way of playing like they have done with Hitman, unless it's on a massive scale. Like, credit Fortnite for doing stuff like that, but also like that is they have all of the ducats, they have all of the money and all of the tools to be able to do it. Whereas Hitman's just a small studio, IO, who are really fucking cool, who are currently making a James Bond game.
Well, this is what I was going to say, is like, I wonder, did this mode come out of like a meeting that's like, what idea do we have in the canister that we can like make a mode that will keep them so busy we can just finally completely just be working on the Bond game?
Yeah, maybe.
And this will keep people going for a long time.
Yeah. But yeah, Hitman is good. Freelancer is good. Everything about this I like, and no one is surprised to hear that, because I am the Hitman champion of this podcast.
Yeah. Short of like Garrett and Mark giving their takes, it feels like one that even though we might be playing a lot, I don't think we're going to come back to talking about too much on the show, because of that roguelike nature, we can't really talk about it in a way that everybody can necessarily, because everyone's run looks different.
Exactly.
So I think
what I'm hearing the more you and I talk Hades. That's what I heard you say.
Yeah, the more you and I talk about it, the less interesting it will get to people. But it will be interesting to hear how the two boys, because I actually don't know how, and it might be one of those times where he breaks your heart, but I don't know Garrett's relationship to Hitman games.
Neither do I. But
yeah,
look, I love Garrett the human. Like,
he might test you.
Yeah, no, seriously. Garrett the person I like, I don't think we necessarily always overlap with our takes. But then if everyone on this show just agreed with everything everyone ever said, you would never get Game of the Years. Although the depressing agreement on our 2023 or 2022 Game of the Year, like, that was a bit, I guess it's going to be this. If you haven't listened, you can go and listen to the extensive Game of the Year, but our ultimate Game of the Year winner.
I love that you pivoted from going Game of the Year was an anticlimax into going, oh, you should definitely listen to it.
No, but
as profoundly disappointed as I was, we still want the clicks, folks.
It wasn't none of the conversations except the ultimate winner were an anticlimax. That's what I mean. Like, myself, you, Mark, Garrett, and Barry, like, we all have very different tastes and stuff, and that's what makes it interesting to hear us sit there and basically fucking rail into each other for like 9-10 hours every single year. So nothing but respect for the big GK.
Yeah, I thought you were winding up to be like, Garrett the human being I love, Garrett the video gamesman I hate with every fibre of my being.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love him, but also fuck him as well,
Okay, time to wrap up here with the news. Again, it's that time of year where like the news stories are variations on themes we've heard before, because there's still, or this early in the year, not a huge amount happening. Apart from this kind of stuff. So I might handle the first two stories here, Jack, because they're fairly similar. And then you bat clean up with the third one, which is a follow-up on stuff we've been talking about for a long, long time. We have... It feels like I saw Barry talking about it this week. I can't remember if it was on Twitter or in our group chat. But the games as a live service industry has gotten... like, so it is so savage out there that like, essentially, like, if you're going to try and chase that trend, and we're always advocates on this show that, as Kevin Smith would always say, look at where the puck's going to be, not where it is. Like, you shouldn't be, trying to make a games as a live service when one has succeeded, because by the time you get your game out, it's going to, like, the bubble might have burst. Yeah. And we saw that with a lot of battle royals where like PUBG kicked off big time. Fortnite was able to pivot quick enough, but a lot of the other battle royals by the time they came out were fucked. And this is kind of similar to that, like their Royale games or their games as a live service games. Two of them announced this week that they are going bye-bye, and that's Knockout City, which will close its final servers in June 6th. Yeah. So that's 2 years that game has been out. And then Iron Galaxy's Rumbleverse is also shutting down. Which,
by the way, two daggers in the heart for Barry Murphy, because he loves both of these games.
Yeah. And that was like Rumbleverse only got 6 months before it was culled. And that, again...
That's brutal, isn't it?
with the way things are, like we were saying, like it either needs to be a Fortnite level success out of the gate or it's fucked. These things are not getting, because they're massive financial investments as well if they don't hit straight away to try and like rehab that. So what you're seeing is companies just having to cut bait. And go. And it's sad, and there's some people, like, hopefully, you know, the studio is pivoting to something else and we don't see more firings or anything like that happening. But again, in terms of that, Jack, that idea of chasing trends rather than creating them, I think these are stories we've been seeing and are going to continue to see within the video game industry because people can't help but try and chase trends.
Yeah, of course. It's always been that industry, though. It's always been a copycat industry. I don't think that's ever changed. It's always constantly influencing itself. Like, this is popular, therefore let's go and do that.
And that's the thing. I think Hollywood does it as well. And I think it doesn't even come from, like, part of it is the deliberate trend chasing, but I think a lot of it stems from this idea of risk mitigation. Is that it's not so much that people want to spend the money to chase the trend, it's that companies are afraid to spend the money on something that looks like it's not a sure thing. Whereas if you go with a pitch that you're going to make a battle royale game and you can go to funders, look at how much money fucking Fortnite is generating, we can get a slice of that pie. Then it becomes, you know, from those funders, a more stable investment. And it's just a shame that that's the way it is. But, you know, capitalism, lol, I guess.
Yeah, there's an element of that. There's obviously an element of, I don't know, creative inspiration by something. You can always tell there's like two ways of that being influenced. There's that capitalism element of just like, you know, executive bursts through the door and they're like, hey, look at this thing. It's doing real well. We should do one of those too. Let's make loads of money from it. And there's, I see this idea. This idea is done well, but I feel like I've got a different take on this idea and I'm going to present it in this fashion. Yeah. And you see that more from, I guess, like the indie games. You know, people being influenced by different genres or different specific game, whether it's right down to like a mechanic or whether it's like the whole thing.
Again, you could see that, like, for example, a game we love around here is Superhot. Yeah. And you could say Superhot is cashing in on, like, you know, first person shooter, which is, you know, always a safe bet. Always, it's never unpopular. It just ebbs and flows how popular the first person shooter is. But in that case, they had an idea to make a puzzle game that the mechanic to solving puzzles is that it's a first-person shooter.
Yeah, exactly. So there's originality in there, and there's something that isn't created cynically, you know, just to kind of cash in on that thing. And, like, maybe not as much with Rumbleverse, but I think with Knockout City, there's definitely an element of originality in that, right?
That's the one of the two I played.
Yeah. I played it. I wasn't massively enamored with it, but I remember thinking, look, this is a cool idea. It's a cool mechanic, the whole dodgeball thing, and like the balls kind of being dispersed around the level and then picking them up and, you know, nailing people with the attacks and stuff. It's cool. So at least there's like a little bit of a take on it. Rumbleverse, I'm a bit like, I feel less inclined, and I didn't actually play it. Like I've watched bits and pieces of it, and I'm just like, again, it's not for me. You know, it's like if a new Taylor Swift record comes out, I'm like, yeah, it's probably not for me, but I'm glad other people enjoy it, and I'm not going to openly say I hate this thing just because it exists, because it just might not be for me. Yeah, you're the problem.
It's you.
No, but that's it. Well, that kind of speaks more to my self-esteem, right?
Not doing a better reference than that on this show. Might as well wrap up.
There you go. It is me. So fuck, I guess. It sucks because I think, you know, with these games, the very nature of the games, the people that lose out are all the people that just pile all of their time and resource into it. Like, Rumbleverse is out. I'm sure in Rumbleverse there's a way to pay to have stuff, right? Whether it's cosmetics or, you know, boosts or power-ups or anything. I'm sure you can pay. It's a free-to-play game, so there absolutely is that. So there's probably people that have spent like hundreds of, maybe thousands of dollars on this game and spent like, you know, hundreds of hours playing it, you know, accumulating all of the unlocks and bits and pieces within the game for it to then disappear up its arse after 6 months. It just makes you feel fickle, like, in a way, with what you're giving to something. And then, you know, is the experience great? Yes. And, you know, are you kind of paying for that time that you had and the experience that you had to be enhanced in the way that you wanted to when you parted with the money? Yes. But also, like, at the same time right now, if I wanted to go back and play my original Final Fantasy VIII save, it's on a memory card on my PlayStation 1, which I still have in a box somewhere. So I could totally do that if I wanted to. So, like, I feel like all of that time and energy or whatever I poured into it, like the same way I have all of my saves of games that I have as like in the cloud or whatever, and any physical games that I still have, I can always go back and, you know, at that point in that game that I was playing, continue, you know, 13 years ago or something. With this, it's just everything that you've ever done and invested and unlocked or whatever in a game is just gone forever, and that sucks.
Yeah,
that really sucks. Does. And that the people are the big casualties in here. Obviously, like people losing jobs and stuff as well. Really, really shitty, you know, but maybe hopefully get reassigned to another project at least within the company if the company is continuing to do a games as a live service thing. But yeah, I do just feel for people that kind of invest all their time into something for it to just gone. That sucks.
Stuff. Okay, we don't take a tour that often into Konami Corner anymore, but it looks like we're wrapping up today with a little trip down Activision Alley.
Yeah, Activision Alley, or Kotick Corner, but with a K for corner. So Activision Blizzard are paying $35 million to settle charges raised by the Securities and Exchange Commission, aka the SEC, following a probe relating to workplace misconduct. So the SEC launched this investigation into Activision Blizzard AB, subpoenaing specifically Kotick and other executives in the company to provide internal comms regarding the company's response to high-profile allegations of widespread misconduct and harassment. What I thought was interesting in this is, in a statement that they provided, they didn't admit or deny the allegations. They just said, we're pleased to have amicably resolved this matter. As the order recognises, we've enhanced our disclosure processes with regard to workplace reporting and updated our separation contract language. That is basically just admitting that you did some shit, essentially. But they didn't. There was no apology in there. There was just, we are happy that we've settled this, and we have changed these things.
There's never an apology, Jack.
No, right?
Oh, my sweet summer child.
Yeah, I know, but that, to me, that's like, it's sickening. One of the charges in here...
I feel like there's almost, like, the paying of these settlements is often the tax they pay so they don't have to apologize. You know what I mean?
Like, you could apologize for free, or you could pay $35 million, and Bobby Kotick's like, I'll pay the $35 million. Jack,
you could. I could.
Yeah.
They won't.
No. But you just could pay $35 million just so you don't have to mea culpa the whole situation.
Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
You know, that's I'm very much reminded by in this story.
Yeah. The one that really sucked in here, additionally, in a separate charge, the SEC said Activision Blizzard illegally violated its whistleblower protection rule by requiring former employees to inform the company if they received a request for information for the staff conducting the investigation. So people that don't even work for the company anymore, Activision were like, you need to tell us if the SEC are asking you for information, obviously so they could be prepared to know who it was that was saying shit about them. That is fucked up, man. And I hope everyone told them exactly where to go after they did that.
Yeah. It's just like every time I see a headline on any website that starts with Activision, I'm like, here we go. Here we go. And it's just like, it's never good news. It's always worse news.
As well, they paid out $18 million 2 years ago. based on all these sexual harassment lawsuits that existed. So that is now a total of $53 million that this company have paid because they're shit-heels.
And that's what I don't think it's going. And will this be the last time they have to pay out?
No.
I would say no.
I would be certain that the answer to that was no. So yeah, Activision Blizzard, massive bag of twats. And that's probably not even the people that work there. It's the people at the executive committee level who have happily just shoveled dirt on top of people's complaints and like genuine HR issues for years. And now, look, this is paying all this money out and stuff. It's like and it's satisfying to see them getting dragged for it. But again, they're such a powerful company. They can just buy their way out of this.
Yeah.
And it makes me sick, like the whole Microsoft angle within this as well. You know, like all this stuff was going on, but they were like, you know, before it was even clean of these investigations, they were still putting forward to take it, you know, take the company on because they're worth that much, and because that level of cash always outweighs that level of morality, which is just, yeah, it sucks. Again, another reason you should watch Succession, because that is an interesting angle in season 3 of Succession. So plug for that. But still, yeah, F this company, man. I can't remember the last time I saw them in the news doing anything that was remotely good or based in any possible imagination. And the fact that Bobby Kotick is still CEO through all of this has not been punished at all.
No, and will continue to not be.
Oh. Yeah.
I feel like we got caught out having to end the show on a really dour note last week.
Yep.
So, Jack, I am going to try and make the save this time. Give me your top 3 sandwiches.
Oh, now. I mean, like, this is... Look, meatball marinara is in there, okay?
Yeah.
I know that might be like a bit of a basic bitch answer, but you get like melted meatballs, marinara sauce, and cheese. And yes, the Subway one is good, but I've had meatball marinaras from like a sort of mum and pop cafes and stuff as well, and it's just a fucking good sandwich, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I'm a fan of olives, so I kind of like a little bit of olive in there as well. But you know, that might not be for everybody. Just meatball marinara, melted cheese, bit of pepper, and some olives is just, whew. It's definitely in the conversation. So I'm going to go for like a high street kind of supermarket kind of box sandwich. A lot of the time I'll go for a chicken and stuffing. Stuffing is a blessed construction of food. It really is. It's underutilized. It only seems to crop its head up like when someone could be bothered to make a roast or at Christmas. Why do we not have stuffing year round, Dave? The only place that I can obtain it is in a chicken and stuffing sandwich. Therefore, chicken and stuffing sandwich is on my fucking list. And you know, like when you go to an event and they have like the vans and they do like a hog roast sandwich, and you can get like either a chicken like or a pulled pork or something in there, but with like hot stuffing and like maybe applesauce with the pork, or like if it's chicken you can get like a little bit of, you know, like a flavored chicken in there, like a Cajun or something, and they'll do it hot with the stuffing. Oh my goddamn, is that a fantastic sandwich?
I feel like the chicken and stuffing sandwich for me and my taste hinges dramatically on the application and quantity of whether you're choosing butter or mayo.
Yeah.
Mayo is something for me that I only ever want a slight suggestion of on my sandwich. I can deal with. You very reach my mayo tipping point. So I would often, if asked, if it's a being put together from scratch chicken and stuffing sandwich, I don't trust a lot of places that I haven't been before. So if I don't know the place, I'm probably going to go butter, just because like I can deal with too much butter much more than I can deal with too much mayonnaise. That would be a strong contender for me. I think like a classic ham and cheese, like toasted situation is hard to beat. It's perfection in a sandwich. If you want to go seasonal, either the leftover homemade sandwich is an absolute classic. Or the I know we talked before in our chat about the old Marks and Spencer's Christmas sandwich.
Yeah,
a classic in the genre. One I'd like to throw in. By the way, the reason I came up with this, again, mentioned him a second time on the show, friend of the show, Keith Broney, was telling me that on his travels to those old United States, he had the world famous pastrami on rye at Katz's Deli.
Oh, very good.
Which he said absolutely lived up to the bill. But it was like, I think he said it was like a $26 sandwich or something like that. Somewhere up around the $30 mark for a fucking sandwich. But
it's not an everyday occurrence, is it?
It's Katz's Deli. It's the pastrami on rye.
Yeah. By the way, going down that line, I love a fucking Reuben sandwich.
Yeah.
I don't think I would ever eat corned beef like out there, but like corned and salted beef, if you get it like from a good place and it's fresh. Ooh.
You have said to me, because I'm going to finish this off, I have a tied first and second place at the moment for me, and it's a place I haven't got to go in a long time, but I really keep meaning to go back to in Dublin. So this is going to tempt you even more to come over this year.
Yeah.
There is a place called The Meltdown in Dublin.
Right.
Which is a toasted cheese sandwich restaurant.
Oh, nice.
All
How very Dutch.
Yes, all sandwiches are on sourdough bread.
Very good.
And I have got 2 sandwiches from that restaurant that I think you will be on board with and would feature in my top list. One is the spicy Cajun, which is chicken, Cajun sauce, buttermilk ranch sauce, jalapenos, and red cheddar. Okay.
Oof.
Then I think this might get you even more. The rib melt.
Oh, I love a rib sandwich.
So, pulled pork rib meat with homemade meltdown barbecue sauce, macaroni and cheese.
Wow.
Pineapple and mature red cheddar.
What the fuck is pineapple doing in there?
I don't know. That's the one.
Fuck out of there.
I've had it once and I did get it the fuck out of there. I just said, no pineapple, please. I don't fuck with that.
I like pineapple by itself or in something sweet, but if you start putting it in like pizzas or sandwiches,
get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to go to the Meltdown. Among the other places, we've been slowly basically been building a list since COVID of the places we've got to bring you to eat when you get here. It's going to be an expensive fucking trip, mate.
Me and Dave are just going to get like a hotel in Dublin and just eat our way around Dublin for a few days.
Just get really loose-fitting tracksuits.
Oh dear. What a combo.
Right, on that note, thank you very much for listening to another episode of Link to the Cast. At Link to the Cast is where you need to follow us on Twitter to keep up with what we're doing, see the shows as they're posted, and talk to us about, what you've been enjoying, what you've been playing, what you've been watching, and what you think about what we've been watching and playing. Individually, I'm at The Day to Dave, Jack is at Jack Lazell, Mark is at Lithium Project, and Garrett is at Garrett Kidney. We'll see you again next week, and we might even have more than 2 people on the show. Who knows?
Who knows?
See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.